Alright YouTubes, how are we all doing? Hope you're all well. Thanks for tuning in and welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we've got a bonnet to do on a Land Rover Discovery. So there's the car, nice clean car. And yeah, we've got to do the bonnet for a big bird poo mark. So yeah, it's quite aggressive, this one. It's eaten right through. So yeah, we're gonna have to take care of that and obviously paint the bonnet. Stone chip wise, it doesn't look too bad. So it's only really in for this, so we will do some chips if we see them around it. But I want to try and keep the colour away from the edges, really, if I can. And blow it in, blow the base coat in, and clear coat the whole bonnet. Yeah, I've had in the past with bird poo marks that I've sanded them out and they look fine. I didn't go through to bare metal or anything, like just sanding them out in the clear and the base coat down to like the first layer of primer on factory paint, and yeah, it looked fine. Painted it, looked fine, and then after a bake and it's cooled down, the marks have reappeared. So quite often now, especially if you know, it's not just on the surface, but I can see that it's eaten all the way through, which it has. You can feel it all with your nail. I bare metal them now quite often because it just eats its way all the way through. I think it's the acid in the bird's stomach that does the damage. But there's all different severities of it, really, and different clear coats react different to it and stuff like that. So yeah, probably end up taking this down to the bare metal. It's aluminium, this bonnet, so have to be a little bit careful we don't misshape anything or put any ripples in it. So Reese is going to prep this job. He might record some of it, but he's probably just going to try some 240 on this first and try and feather that out, and then just 800 grit and grey scotch the whole bonnet for blending, and then see what chips that we do within the vicinity of that bit of damage. And yeah, so he'll prep this up, he'll do a bit of recording of it, and then obviously we'll do the painting. So yeah, that's it. I'll get we'll get everything set up and get cracking on with it.
How we doing, YouTubes? We all right? Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, a little bit of footage on the preparation of this job. Reese Reese recorded this on his phone. He's not 100% keen on being in the videos. I think where he's still learning a bit, and he takes his time, which is, you know, what I ask of him, to take his time. Yeah, he doesn't want the distractions, I don't think, of thinking about the camera. I've sort of said to him, don't think about the camera, but yeah, he's obviously conscious that the camera's on him. So yeah, so when he's prepping jobs, obviously we can't show all the footage of everything because Reese does a lot of it as well. Yeah, that's why some of the jobs are just painting, really, if Reese has done the prep, but he's done a bit of footage on this one. So I told him to take his time, to be careful, sanding that little bird poo mark out, not to create any ripples in that panel. And yeah, he sanded it with 240. We did go over it a bit more, and almost got it down to the metal, but he was just being overly cautious. And then yeah, the rest of the bonnet he's just prepping up as if we would for all blend areas. So I said just to key the whole bonnet up as if we were blending everywhere. So he's gone over it all with 800 grit. It's quite hard actually to find some decent 800 grit DA pads. Obviously the 3M one, film disc, really want the film disc. The 3M film discs are really expensive, but they are good and they got a good cut. This one's made by SIPs, you know, SIP SIPs, and they're pretty decent. They don't clog up too much, and they've got quite a good bit of longevity on them. Then we go over all the flat areas that DA can't get with 1000 grit soft pad dry. followed, what we do after that is grey scotch with a bit of scotching paste and some water, and we sort of go over everything. We go over obviously all the edges we don't get with the DA, and we go over all the surface that we have DA'd as well, because you get the dust off of it, and there's always little shiny patches, and it's just good way of cleaning it up, saves blowing all the dust off as well. And yeah, so we give everything a good grey scotching with some paste and water afterwards. But yeah, he got a nice bit of footage there. I think he must have had it on some sort of cinematic mode. So yeah, it's all prepped, masked in the booth now. That little spot where the bird line was, I just used Mipa 1K water-based primer on that. It's a great little primer for jobs like this. Just two light coats. You keep it in the pot, in a PPS pot, or in my case an RPS pot, and I just put it on an old gun that I've got with a 1.4 setting. 2 coats. Dry the first coat as if you was drying water base, and then I normally lamp the second coat just to dry it through. And you can obviously, being a water based primer, you can only dry sand it, otherwise it will melt. So yeah, so that was what was primed in that spot. I've masked the job up as if it was ready to paint like it is now, and just sectioned that bit off with 2 coats of water-based primer, which, like I say, is really handy. I'd rather use that than an aerosol primer. And sometimes, you know, a little spot like that to mix up 2K, it's hardly worth it, because I'm not trying to look for any build over fill or anything. So that 1K water-based primer is ideal for these little spot repairs and stuff, and like I say, it dries really quick. Dry it like water-based paint. And yeah, that was just sanded off with 500 grit and then finished off in 600 grit and feathered out, obviously. And yeah, that's just the first coat on there. Is just a coat of Mipa blender coat, so just cover the whole panel with a medium wet coat. It doesn't have to be super heavy or anything, but you want to make sure you've got a consistent film over the whole panel with that blender coat. Over all your primer and everything, you put it, and it fills in all the little micro scratches, and yeah, it's really aids on the blending. So just turn the temperature up a tad. The trouble is, I don't want to, if you keep turning temperatures up and down, it's quite time consuming. You burn loads of gas to get the temperature up, and then you chuck it all back out the extractor to get the temperature back down for your next application. So the way I apply this Mipa base coat, I try and make it as efficient as possible with not just the paint and the application time, but also with the energy that I use while I'm doing it. So yeah, it's on spray mode at the moment, so obviously everything you're warming the booth up with is being extracted out, so you're chucking that heat straight back out. So just put it up a little bit more heat. If you grab a bit of heat that's coming through the filters from the burner with the increase in temperature, your blow gun, your blow dryer, whatever you're using, is going to grab that heat because it's sucking in from the back of it. It's going to grab that heat and chuck it onto where you're directing it, onto your panel to dry the water base out, so that helps. But all the paint applications, while the paints are going on, the water base, the Mipa water base and the top coats, I'm normally around the 22 degrees mark for that, for applying. But obviously with drying out the full coat of base coat, I do turn the temperature up. So I've said in the past, in previous videos, I'm probably going to say it again because it is a repetitive job and I'm showing the same things, but I'm going to be saying the same things that I have said before. But with this Mipa, you can do it all as single coats, or you can double coat it. It's got really good coverage, this system. It's thin 20%, so it's not with good coverage. Sometimes the downside to that is your base coat might be a bit textured, a bit thicker, but it's got 20% thinners in it. You can put between 10 and 20. I always go with the full 20, sometimes even a little bit more, but the coverage is really good. So you've got to start off with a half coat. They don't recommend putting a full coat on as the first coat, and I have tried it. Sometimes it can like go a bit funny around the edges of primer when you put a full wet coat on as a first coat. So it's like a half coat, It's not a dust coat, but you just sort of put a half coat on there and dry that out fully, which is easy to dry because it's not a very thick film build. So that half coat goes on first as like, I suppose, like a stabilising coat. That's what it's for. Just gets on the panel and it gives you a good surface then to put your coverage coat on, or coverage coats depending on the colour. So I don't go as far into my blend area with that first half coat, and as you can see, I'm vertically challenged. So even a bonnet on this Range Rover, I need a little step up just to reach the middle, which is a bit of a pain. It does annoy me, but there we go. I can't moan. That's what God's given me, so that's it. We have to adapt to it. So yeah, that's that half coat. Really quick, nothing heavy, nothing wet. Get that half coat on. Keep the booth temperature around the low to mid 20s, like I would be just applying the base coat. Keep that temperature around that. Get my I've got 2 blowguns, so I've got the Sata Air Dry 2, which is really increases volume of air, and I've also got this A&I hybrid heated blowgun, which what I use a combination of both. So for this first half coat, to save me having a mess about with any temperatures in the booth, and to dry it quickly and to dry it thoroughly, I put that on the medium heat setting. Not a great amount of air volume compared to the Sata one, but it does increase the air temperature coming out. So dry that first coat out without changing the temperature in the booth. So I'm still in the booth. I haven't had to leave the booth and put it on bake or anything for that first half coat. And then there's 2 ways. You can just do 2 single layer coats, or you can do a double coat. This colour it's one of them colours that will cover really well. So yeah, coverage is almost there on that half coat, to be honest with you, and I'm not really covering a lot else on that bonnet because it's still got the original colour on there. So it's sort of 2 medium wet coats really. That's how I do it. So once I get to as far as I'm spraying, I can just come back on myself. You can see it goes on there. It looks patchy, stripy and textured, and it can throw you. So I've done that half coat, done that double coat, come back on myself, and I've done my bit of blending in my blend area there on the end of that bonnet. So like I say, it looks really patchy, it looks textured, it looks stripy, and when I was first started using this system, I was thinking there's not enough on there, it's not going on properly. So I keep putting more on there, trying to get a wet film, and putting way too much on. It's supposed to look like that, so I ignore what that looks like. As long as I know I've gone over all the area evenly and consistently and double back on myself, I know that is all the product that I need on there, no matter how patchy it looks or stripy. It's just the way that paint is, that's the way it looks. So that, you can see that it looks textured, it looks uneven, it looks patchy, and I do that double coat, and then you do all your blending, do your flicking out, feathering the trigger, sort of trying to keep the blend just past that feature line on that side. You use a bit of a feature line to hide your blend a little bit. I did go a bit further over it, but that's it. And then what I do is let the overspray clear, whack the booth temperature up to 45 degrees on a bake cycle, so I'm not wasting gas and chucking that that warm air straight back out. And as soon as that air's in there, then I use the Sata Air Dry 2, and it doesn't take long at all to dehydrate that Waterbase and get it dry. So now on the drop coat at 1 bar, and still looks a bit patchy when it's dry, but super smooth like silk. It really is. Don't get any dye back on it at all, or shrink back. So that's a drop coat at 1 bar with an increased distance, and it's starting to look a bit better now. Sort of between 1 and 2 drop coats really, depending on the colour, and sort of do a bit more blending and a bit more flicking out with that drop coat as well, you know. Take it into your drop coating zone, obviously increase distance there, and then yeah, a bit lighter on the trigger in the blend area, and then you're supposed to let it dry naturally. They don't recommend blow drying the the drop coat. Let it dry, and if you think it needs another one, give it another one, and you can sort of change the shade a little bit. So if you had done a spray out, checked it and thought, oh, it needs to be a touch lighter, the colour looks good but the colour needs to be a touch lighter, a second drop coat will do that for you. It will lighten up the shade, but I'm in a bit of a rush, like we all are all the time, so I'm just blowing that gently with my gun still at 1 bar, so I'm not blowing it with the air dryer or anything like that, just to dry that off, and it just dries really quick. And now yeah, on the second drop coat, a bit more flicking in the blend zone, drop coating over the blend zone, and then yeah, 1 bar again over it all. Do a bit of random sort of dropping as well, not just you know, as if I was spraying normally. I sort of do a little bit of flicking about, but with a lot of base coats, you don't want to over drop coat it because then all the metallic will start bunching up. But I've having to turn my gun out a bit, can't hold it up straight now because I've virtually run out of paint, so I'm keeping my gun up vertically just to get it to get that, squeeze that last bit of paint out, and a bit of a lighter drop coat there and sort of crossing over a little bit, but that's me out of paint there. And yeah, still can look a little bit patchy with a drop coat on there, but then by the time I've mixed all my clear coat up and that gives it a good amount of time to sort of dry naturally without blowing it or anything like that. I don't think they recommend blowing it because you can maybe move the metallic about a little bit, but I have had it where I've gone, mixed my clear coat, gone back in, gone to give it a tap rag, because you obviously want to give it a tap rag to get any base coat dust off that's landed, because that can show through as, like, you know, as little bits, tiny little bits of grit in the paint. So yeah, it has caught me out where I thought the base coat looked dry, from the drop coat looked dry, and yeah, put a tap rag on it, and it ends, so you catch it and mark it. So yeah, I've just done my booth filters, the back one, so just have to adjust the pressure a little bit. It's a little bit of trial and error sometimes, just adjusting the pressure. It was a little bit too negative for me, the pressure. My boot's a little bit finicky because of where it draws air in and where it's situated, and it's sort of a little bit custom design. It's not perfect. I've got a short plant on the back, so yeah, I do have a little bit of jittering about with the pressures, with the pressures on the booth. So especially when I've changed the filters when they've been fully blocked, and yeah, as a double precaution, it looks dry. It is pretty much dry, but I just give it a little gentle blow with the blow gun, just to guarantee that it's dry before I put tap rag on. And once it's dry, got no issues with running tap rag all over it. And I don't know if you can sort of notice now, that patchiness is gone. Any stripiness or any textured look is completely gone now. Now it's dried right out. So yeah, good tacking all over. A couple of times you can see on the tap rag is sort of coloured where it's picking up all the base coat dust. Go over it a couple of times, give it a little gentle blow. Now yeah, onto the clear coat now. So Mipa CX2 clear coat on this. They're quick dry clear coat. Don't normally, I do it on some bonnets. I like to use the CC9 on bonnets. It flows a bit nicer, it goes on a bit of a better gloss to it. I was in a little bit of a rush on this job, and yeah, I know with the CX2, even with putting a higher film build on a bonnet like you would, because you put a wetter coat on there, after a 15-minute bake, well, I put it on for 20 minutes, it's 5 minutes to warm up to 60 degrees. Once that's cooled, I know I can work with that. I can get that job out. After an hour of it cooling down, I can flat and polish it, and no issues with it. I haven't had any solvent boil with it from baking it, and it dries right through really well, and it's a good film build, and it does lay down nice. For a quick dry one, it's one of the best I've used for the speed of drying, and it don't get no gloss drop from baking. It loves a little 15-20 minute bake. It works out really well, so it's great for your day-to-day stuff, but your small single panels and all that. I've done bigger jobs with it. You put the it's got HS25 hardener in this, so it's their medium hardener, but you put the HS10 hardener in it, and it's even quicker drying. But obviously, downside is you may lose a little bit of finish with a faster hardener. But single panels and stuff like that, like this bonnet, works out really well. So first coat, you don't want it as a complete full coat, so I call it a medium wet coat. So first coat's going to be a bit lighter than your second full coat, but you want to make sure it's closed over all the base coat, so it's got an even film all over it. So pressure's at 2 bar, just a little bit quicker than the first coat really, but not a lot in it. But just make sure you've got none of the little micro holes showing in the base coat, because it's not closed over it then. So probably a little bit closer distance wise on the first coat as well, and then onto the second coat, which is your full wet coat. On that O setup on the gun, it's a pretty fast gun. Suits my spraying style, that O setup. I have full fan second coat. This second coat's at 1.9 bar, just especially on a bonnet, 1.9 bar. I know it's tiny little increments, but to me they make a little bit of a difference, especially on a bonnet when I want to sort of get it on there nice and wet, and get a good amount of product on there, because obviously the bonnet's flat, so I haven't got to worry about sagging so much or running anywhere. So and I have the fluid control in. So how I set my gun up, everyone's different. People do it from one way or the other. I do mine from when I feel resistance on the trigger. The indicator of my fluid control is at the top, the marker's at the top, and then I do my adjusting from there. So from full trigger, I'm normally first coat, I'm normally 3/4 of the way turn in, and then second coat I'm half a turn in. That's pretty much my procedure on most paint jobs. Sometimes I might go 1/4 of a turn in on bonnets and stuff like that, but I'm normally half a turn. And then if I'm looking for trying to replicate maybe a bit of a lighter finish, I might go for sort of 3/4 of a turn in on the fluid. You can see even bonnets on cars like this are a little bit of a faff for me, having to sort of just do the middles in some sections before I can get a full stroke across the whole panel. So I do have to sort of fill in the gaps a little bit with the finish, and then I wouldn't say I'm like super slow on that. That it does. I really love the O setup, I must admit. I've got the CC gun and I do like it, but it doesn't. And the Sata rep said to me as well, it won't suit your spraying style, and it doesn't really. And I've had some issues with it. I've had runs with the CC and not with this gun, which is bizarre because the CC puts on less product and a lighter coat. But there's a video coming out soon where I had a couple of runs, and I'll show you how I get them out. I'm picking this gun up more and more and going back to it, to be honest with you. Like I say, I do like the CC, and I just find keep swapping guns about, for me, it doesn't help me. I like to just stick with the same thing on every job, really, to be honest with you, and just adjust settings on it. Me keep swapping guns about and that, it takes me a couple of jobs to readjust. That's just me. Some people can just chop and change guns and maybe produce the same results, but yeah, me swapping guns about doesn't help me. I'm sort of I have to get in the zone with them, really, and get my consistency. The trouble with me is, as well, as I'm on and off jobs, so I'm not just painting. Obviously, I'm doing repairs and stuff, so I'll be skipping days. Some days I don't paint a job, and other days I might paint too. So yeah, I can lose my flow a little bit sometimes, and then that can sort of knock my confidence a little bit. So yeah, swapping guns about sometimes doesn't help me, but yeah, I always feel more confident with the O. I'm so used to it. But yeah, that's the end of this anyway, and yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, here's the end results.
Right then, YouTubes, that's the Land Rover Discovery bonnet all finished, so I'll give you a quick look. It'll come out okay. I had a couple of nibs in it, a handful of nibs. Yeah, I've been getting a few little, sort of, not little, but sort of, not like a load of dirt in jobs, but just been getting a few big bits over the last few jobs. I have just done the filters on the back, but I think the roof filters are they're overdue now in the booth, so it needs a bit of an overhaul, I think. And I sometimes I set the pressure in my booth so it's a bit more positive than negative, so it stops anything being sucked into it then if it's pushing on the doors instead of sucking in on the door, so that helps with cleanliness of jobs. But yeah, been getting a few rocks here and there, but overall pretty clean. But I always like to get them as clean as possible. But yeah, anyway, yeah, a couple of nibs in it, but yeah, it all come out okay. And so that's Mipa 6 2 clear coat on that, the quick dry one, and yeah, blended in the bonnet here and the same on the other side. Blended in really well, this colour. Obviously it's edge to edge here with the original colour still on both sides. Kept the colour away, which is handy. And yeah, it does blend really well, the Mipa, if you use a blender coat on there as well. Even tricky colours are pretty straightforward and easy to blend, to be honest with you. It is good. I don't know if you saw in the footage, when you put the base coat on, it looks a bit dry and a bit patchy and all the rest of it, but when it dries out and you give it that drop coat, there's no cloudiness in that at all. These sorts of colours can be a bit troublesome with patchiness and cloudiness, but laid on there nice. And yeah, pretty straightforward job. So yeah, that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it, and please like, share and subscribe and all that good stuff. And we'll see you again in the next one. Look after yourselves. Cheers.